and when you you prefer to be delivered, that's when you pay 1,500. So operating offline and online in order to transition people.
Sure, sure.
So that's what we're engineering now.
Did you talk about you're planning to have different markets in different locations?
Yeah, but that's another step. I mean, the moment we've managed to be able to supply our 1 star, 2 stars, 4 stars in markets, that's when we're going to immediately to connect with, to start establishing community food hubs, because the female street vendors who would come all the time to the markets, walking kilometers before getting products in back, with all the sunshine of the products and with all the hassle that can be. If we happen to capture them, say, already we have a good supply system.
Right.
Us delivering to people is the same thing, the same way we can deliver to you. So stay in your neighborhood, we bring the quality, we bring whatever you need, so you supply only 200 meters, for example.
200. So is it, so remind me again, are your customers consumers or businesses? Are they?
For now, we were lucky that we were concentrating on B2Cs, because B2Bs have been very hit by the COVID. They're not going to come back very soon. And of course, B2Bs was another category of customers. We had 1, 2, but we didn't want to really emphasize to be strong on that side, because some people are stronger than us on that side, and because they have bigger, they have good cash flow, so they can afford to wait 40 days before being paid. They have trucks that we don't have, so they can afford to bring big volumes. But for us, we wanted to be strong, because our mandate was not to the little dollar that we can earn from big business. It's to understand consumers, and that's what we are strong in. And understand consumers, you need to serve them. It's hard, it's difficult, it doesn't earn you much, but at least you have that data that is reliable, that's updated every time, that you can, like, whenever you take a decision, you never go wrong, because you know what's happening in households.
So currently, I mean, I'm looking forward to coming back to Kigali and seeing your store, because currently you're in Kigali, is that right?
Yes.
So, but your plan is to, is your plan to have a number of neighborhood PMPs?
Exactly, franchises, partner P.
And so, would you also then expand into other cities?
Of course. I mean, the moment we are serving the upper middle class today, because not only they're easy to convince, they know what they want, they want it in a very good way, and they cannot afford the time to go and get it themselves in the markets. So today, we are targeting them. Once we have a critical mass of theirs and a good volume, that's when we can take their data to the farmers. And once we have the supply system ready, that's when we can afford to go to lower and to even the bottom of the pyramid, because we believe the food is a basic human need, and everyone can afford to have some of it.
And so that was going to be, hello, Christelle, nice of you to join us. And is Deborah there as well? No. Okay, it's just you and me. So that was one of the things I was going to look at this morning, because also while we've got Svend Hollensen joining us in half an hour's time to look at global marketing issues, is a part of the issue for you, as well as having your customers, those that are consumers, those that are in the market already, and therefore what you seem to be doing very well is understanding their needs and their wants and what they like and what they don't like and what they want more of and how they want you to deliver it to them.
Yes.
You also talk about the fact that then you can use perhaps that profit from those people to then, as you say, serve people further down the pyramid within Rwanda.
Yes.
Because as you rightly say, these people who feel at times socially excluded from Rwanda, well, both socially and economically, you want to find a way to serve them as well.
Exactly. We can afford to do some kind of price discrimination.
Yeah.
Because we have the data. We know how many people can afford this price. We know how many people can afford this price, because we can leverage the data that are real, that are standard. Not standard, but real, coming directly from people. We know your price elasticity, so we can have a narrow price. We have your volumes. We have, 6 months after you started buying from us, we know you more than somehow you know yourself, because we can even estimate how much you're spending on tourism, for example, and that helps us to not only to do the price discrimination, but to give you a better service, but also we can say, well, we can leverage on what we can earn on Daro's basket to be able to say, even if Daro allows us, we can say, whenever you buy from us, you sponsor or you subsidize a food stall in some neighborhood, in some slums in Kigali. So that's something you can do, but you cannot do it if you don't have the numbers, and the numbers are not correct.
So Daro, I know you're happy to pay a bit more for the service we're providing you, and we're able to therefore make a little bit more profit from you, and we're pretty open about that because the product's very good and the service is very good.
Exactly.
But also what you, Daro, are helping to do is helping to feed people that are less fortunate than you.
Exactly.
Which is a nice feeling to have for a consumer, if that message is understood in Rwanda. I mean, there are parts of the world where you may need to educate and inform people still about that type of model. Because I can go into, it's quite new even in taking a more closer to home example in the United Kingdom, the idea of people buying goods like organic goods, that was a hard sell. Because people thought, why am I paying more for an organic good which actually looks the same? And so you have to, people had to be educated and informed as to why that was a good idea. So whilst you're in a way, you're creating a market amongst affluent people to think in a different way about why is your product more expensive than down the road? Well, this is the reason why it's slightly more. Quality farmers, certified farmers, quality distribution, great service, good experience. We look after you. And by the way, you're also doing some good for people that are less fortunate than you. And these are the people that you have helped to benefit over the last week, month, year, 2 years, 5 years. Look at the impact that we are having together as a community. Because sometimes, although it might be obvious to you and to me and to others that, that's what it's about, sometimes you still got to story tell that message so that people, you win their hearts. It's an overused phrase, winning hearts and minds, but you really do need to win their heart as well as their head. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's the challenge.
That is the challenge. But once you understand, if you've begun to get the data about your consumers, and many organizations don't have good data, so if you've managed to already get good data, and it might be, is it qualitative as well as quantitative?
Of course, because we've just had a survey. We had an American lady who happened to be our customer. She offered to do to organize some survey. She's now going for a master's degree, and part of her courses of operational research, she's had a task to conduct a research, and she offered on LinkedIn, who is ready to take to give me a task, and we offered, like, can you train our 6 students to conduct a survey in our hardly earned customers for the last 2 years, and we had 300 people in our database.
Right. So you've got 300. So she went out to that survey with a survey.
Yes.
And I have no problem at all with you doing a survey. It's brilliant that you're doing that work. But I would like, maybe Deborah might come in here now, because quite often data for a survey tells us is very useful data. So therefore, once you've got that data, you then perhaps need to get some of your customers together in a smaller group just to talk round some issues and motivations and desires that they have, because quant data is excellent, but having 5 or 6 people together in qualitative discussions, conversations with them.
That's what we are after.
Yeah, well, that's...
Let me cut you short. Right after the survey, not only we offered 5% for all the participants during the their June orders, 5% discount.
That's nice.
And the idea, and all the 6 students are the students from Rwanda Institute of Conservation or Agriculture, so that they are not busy the next 3 months. So we built what we call customer clubs. So whoever has called people, and people responded, and they were willing to share their information that is very sensitive, sometimes asking them how much money you earn a month.
Well, that is sensitive, yeah.
If people responded to that question, so they are your friends. So you start from that. We give them that discount. You give them a top-notch service. Every week you remind them, like before the day they normally order, you make sure that they close the sale, but also you entertain them, you follow them, you make sure that our operations have satisfied them. So once we go all the way, like through the month with them, we can put them, if we give them 10% discount, they can pay upfront. So they give us enough cash flow to organize our operations better.
Yeah.
And after the second month of subscription, we move to referrals. So whenever they bring someone, they not only keep the 5% consistent discount, but also that new person gets on board and gets 5% as well. I know now, I will know how much the cost of sales, how much I need to spend to earn a customer and to keep them. It's an easy way to know how much we need to invest if we want to get more customers. And we're more like getting these people to farm that little group we called customer club.
Do you have a P&P club? Is it called the P&P club? P&P?
No, it's a consumer club. Like everyone has her name. Like let's say,
is it a club? Do I get a card? Do I get a monthly something from you? Do I get special offers from you? Am I part of a club? Am I part of a community?
Yes, that's the thing we want to build. You get a 5% discount for June. That's
right.
Yeah.
July. No, but what I'm saying is this was as a result of your quantitative research.
Exactly.
But can you form a club? I mean, so if I go into a supermarket yesterday, I'm part of a club. I show them my little card. I get a discount. I get told about special offers, special events. I feel part of your community. You're telling me about the great work you're doing. You're telling me about the great lines, the farmers you're talking to. Building loyalty is one thing, but for June. But how do you keep it going for a long time? Can I become a member of your club? Rather than then going to any other market, can I become a member of the P&P club?
PN Loyalty Club.
A club with a loyalty card. I show my card, I get my discount.
So that's the idea. Because the kids are going to go back to school. They're going in September. They're definitely going to go back to RICA. And the idea is we're going to merge all the clubs, and we're going to merge them into one club. We know how many people we have are on subscription and are ready to onboard new customers. So give them not only the 5%. So that 5% is earned, like it's a lifetime discount.
Yeah.
But whenever they bring another customer, they get an extra 5% or something like that. Yeah. So
sometimes people don't always want discounts all the time. They're quite happy as part of their club to have a range of benefits. So, you know, what benefits can you provide them with beyond just discount? Because if you're not careful, ultimately what somebody else will do down the road is they'll also offer a discount. But where can you value add? Where can you continually value add to these people?
Exactly, because we have their data.
Yeah.
We are looking at how we can give them weekly plans, weekly meal plans. They know what they're going to eat on Monday throughout Sunday. And apart from the meal plan, we give you recipes. We suggest recipes. This is how you can cook you cook them well on Monday. This is how you can cook them well on Tuesday. And beyond the recipes and the videos you're going to receive of how to cook this, we're going to be able to give you to dispatch a chef. If you need someone, we want to customize because we know your rhythms, we know your preferences. We are able to customize it and say, well, if you live in an apartment, you don't need potatoes, like raw potatoes. You need peeled potatoes. You need shredded cabbages. You need cut carrots. So we want to customize the solution for you, starting for the people part of the club. And if you're not available to execute the recipes you are sending to you, we want to be able to dispatch a chef, an exclusive service to come to your home, prepare everything, put it in a nitty-gritty way, how you want it to happen, once or twice a week. But you are supported to get fed, properly fed, conveniently fed.
Yeah. Very nice. Okay, Deborah, do you want to pop in now? Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I didn't want to. Good morning, Christelle. Good morning, Fidel. I didn't want to interrupt because I had been listening to a very riveting explanation there, Fidens. I really enjoyed the way that you're clarifying what your business does, and I love the fact that you're focused on listening and learning from the customer. That was really very, very valuable. And how all these activities are essentially building up your story. So a number of points that Daryl started to raise with you. He started to gently ask you questions or point things out. So I'd like to reinforce some of them and ask you some other questions. The storytelling or the story selling, I would so agree with Daryl that you really are at this point needing to emphasize these stories of the customer clubs, etc. Talk about, go and collect photographs, obviously with people's permission, of the work that you're doing behind the scenes, the work that you're doing out of sight. All of this work is really creating this amazing story. So are you okay with that?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to just keep talking and
without anyone nodding.
Right. Good. This other point that Daryl's made about adding value, I would like to really reinforce that it's not simply about adding discounts, because what happens, as Daryl's already pointed out, is that anyone else can copy you, and eventually somebody will sit there, study you, and then say, let's just offer discounts. Because you're the leading brand, it seems, in the area, you also need to just talk about how you add value. So I would again go back to the value chain work that you've already started and start adding more photographs of the situations where you have added value. It's amazing when I heard you talk about, oh, they don't need boiled, they don't need one type of potato, they need different type of potato. That, oh, come to England. You know, please, you know, come, you know, I'm listening to you going, you need to be coming and do a workshop here. So I'd like you to emphasize that, because you're clearly you are focusing on loyalty. Clearly you are focusing on retention. So I just really want to give you a massive gold star for that. And you are creating value. I just think that you need to emphasize the story, because you're talking about, or you need somebody in your team. I mean, do you have someone in the team apart from you that can really help you to over communicate the story? Is there somebody else other than you that can work on the story selling?
As you know, every startup, we cannot have all the functions covered at the same time, and we have a very hard to find someone to do the co-founder. It's difficult to know that we've not come from the same course of work background, but we accept to put together our energy. And it's really, really, really extremely difficult to find someone who's going to bear the burden. So we end up, I have volunteers. Most of the people around me are volunteers. We have someone in digital marketing, and we have someone in food science.
You also have to sorry to cut across you there, but you're also you're also the founder, so you do actually have to walk in those shoes first, as you are doing.
Exactly.
No one can walk in your shoes before you have, and it is very difficult to find the right resources that you want to put in place as well.
Let me ask you, so in terms of the digital person, so do they go and get extra training so that they can, because you've got all these amazing volunteers, do they get additional training so that they can improve their own capacity? You know, is there skill sharing? For example, is there skill sharing amongst the people in the chamber to support what you're doing?
So it's something burgeoning, but that's why we've had very weak industries, very weak value chains, very weak, because the idea of cooperating and knowledge sharing and resource mutualization is something very, very marginal, if I can say, to be just politically correct. And I happen to understand that we are powerful because we can cooperate. We are powerful. And I consider my team as to be my first product. So I emphasize that in my team, but it's still hard to get them to understand that if I cannot buy from you, if I cannot buy your service, if I cannot buy your loyalty, if I cannot buy your consistency, our customers are not going to buy us, both of us. So I need to buy you first, to buy into you first before anyone else can buy into us. So that's something we want to create here. The magic has not yet taken, but we want to export it. And I've been very, very open to share with Pacific, telling him about we need to do a good, to build a big, a strong chamber. And that happens not in numbers of the people we're on board, of the resources we put together. If I say we have only one accountant, knowing how to do accounting for all the young entrepreneurs, because it's a specific industry, specific cluster, and knowing that even within that, if you happen to be many, you can break it into value chains. We know someone who does marketing for people in food, and he knows it so well that he can tell you, I mean, it can do magic, but being specific. But that can be done only if Pacific gets that idea and implements it really effectively.
Thank you for that was a very clear call to action. I heard a very clear call to action there. You totally understand the situation. You also understand the struggle and the frustration. And you've sent out a very clear call to action. So I've clearly heard that. So I value that significantly. And I think at this moment, because I mean, I can rattle on about, oh, you can do this to your story, you can do that to your story, and certainly I can send tips after this session, so you know, we don't burden the session with that, because I can see that you understand that, you understand the value. But this point here about working cooperatively, you'll find that many of the most successful supermarket chains in the UK, that's exactly how they grew. There's a supermarket chain called Asda. I mean, there were so many who, there were groups of farmers, and then they came together, and then they, you know, developed these chains, etc. If you look at the history of the flower market in Holland, where, you know, so many international flowers are bought, again, that's another example of farmers who came together. I mean, they developed, they shared the costs to develop their actual market, all the technology, all the automation. And now, I mean, we can see how powerful they are. So I really underscore your point there. And this is an agenda item that I can clearly see that we need to raise with Pacific.
Definitely. I think also it's very important as well that you recognize that you on this program are also part of a collaborative group. And I'm just wondering whether you still understand between you what resources you have between you that you can still help each other with.
I'm really privileged. So to cut it short, I'm really privileged. I've already had a conversation with Bonfils, and has already done something. I mean, pushing my brand into his networks.
Right.
And that was so powerful. It can grow exponentially.
Yeah.
And I told him about like a few tips that he might be using, and I also was open to receive whatever he has learned in his specific markets that I can learn from him. And that is already decoupling my energies, and it makes me like, what can we do together? If as a small team like this, we can create that magic of collaboration. We know that we are up to something. We are not just people who are in wishful thinking. We are getting things, implementing things, and by joining in a synergistic way, we can do a lot together. And I understand that, and I'm really, really grateful for that, and for even, I mean, since the beginning.
That's heartening to know, and I'm sure Deborah is heartened to hear that too. I think because more and more, you know, I think we're gonna, over the next few, well, from today in terms of the WhatsApp group, we're going to be there, but we're going to step back. We want you to have those conversations with each other, and we want you to find the solutions. We're now in week 5, and there's a lot of information that's been shared and communicated backwards and forwards. So I think it's important, we think it's important that you have that space now to have those discussions, look at those collaborations, share those learnings, because when we come back into these sessions every week, we want to hear what you've been doing together and how those conversations have helped you to progress your thinking, particularly in terms of the entire value map for your system, and starting to think about, you know, where do you add value and how do you start to articulate your brand both personally and for your business. So we are always here to guide and support you as much as we possibly can. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, one thing that the minister said last week was, how can we send us some information about we didn't call them the inner circle, but we do, the inner circle, and we will see what we can do to support them. What we need you to do over the next few weeks is start to articulate your pitch to her. Okay? So we're going to give you some guidelines as to what we need you to do in order that we can therefore best present her with the information. And it may be that we have an open session with her where you articulate and present in 2 or 3 minutes what it is that your business is, what it stands for, how it supports the economy, how you're supporting the recovery plan, and what you believe the government of Rwanda could do to help you even further. Maybe Deborah would like to pitch in then.
No, I totally agree. This is the time for us to, and when we say step back, it's really a time for you guys to all, ladies and gentlemen actually, to look at each other and pull together collaboratively. And I would be expecting that you would be reaching out to those who are here consistently and those who aren't, and simply start to go through, you know, what are the things, because we will be asking you to pull something together to pitch to Paula. Money, funds is sometimes a reason why people don't attend, because their concern is, oh, I need some money right now. And I think it's well worth speaking to each other about that sort of issue. As you know, we're not the sort of organisation that that goes and gives finance in any way, but we're here to invest in your knowledge so that you can develop your innovations, so that they're valued enough in the marketplace. So, you know, there is that exchange. And I think it's that sort of discussion that is well worth having now amongst members, to say, you know, really stepping away from that kind of mindset of looking for aid from others. You know, I love your words, Fidens. You know, essentially you're talking about having dignity, but more than dignity, working from a position of confidence to know that you have created innovative value chains that have not only have the possibility of generating incomes, but actually are, and you're all wanting to take it to the next level. It's really worth talking to people about their financial worries, because sometimes we say these amazing things, but behind the scenes people are worried, oh my God, I don't have any cash. So I think it's well worth us talking about, or you guys talking about that amongst yourselves and saying, well, we've been given all this training now, we've been given all this support by top experts. How can we really start to transform on what we're doing? So that's really what I'm inviting you to do. Have that raw conversation about money, you know, into your own pocket, and how it's generated, and how to use what we've been doing to really bring you up to the next level. I think we've been welcomed. I think we've been joined by Sven. So I can see a little smile on his face. Hi. So I'm not going to say anything more now, but apart from welcome very much, Sven, to our session. We've been warmly awaiting your presence, And what we do in the first instance, we kind of warm ourselves up. We look at the issues from the previous week. We think about the learnings that we've had, and each week, this group, we're getting stronger and stronger. So that's what you walked into. We were having a mastermind just before you came in. But welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Sven. Nice to see you.
Thanks.
Good to see you again. How are you?
Nice to be here.
Thank you so
After
much.
so many years.
Well, I pop out the woodwork every 10 years, yeah. So it was very nice to connect with you again, and I'm very happy to say that we're joined by quite a few of our inner circle of young Rwandan entrepreneurs, and I know particularly that Bonfil would like to say something to you as you have now joined us. So Bonfil, over to you.
Thank you so much, Daryl. Thank you, Deborah. Yeah. On behalf of my teammates, we are delighted to be joined by Dr. Svend Hollensen in today's session, Kwa Muganga 5. Yeah, we are honored and joyful to host such a global expert in national marketing. We all look forward to being inspired by your insights on international marketing and some issues such as a business model for marketing growth, international marketing selection, choice of entry mode, and many more. So without taking much time, I would like to welcome you, sir, and let you share with us those skills and knowledge. Thank you, and most welcome, dear sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. So should I share my screen, or how is it working?
Well, let me continue. I think, you know, Sven, you've been global marketing is your world, and you've been living it for so many years. So can you just maybe just start to give everybody just a background about how you got into that world of global marketing and what your philosophy is, talking about, you know, the need to be global and local as well?
Yeah, that philosophy is pretty old philosophy, so it's nothing new there. But I think that is something you learn if you want to be international. Then you have to think about your own background and where you're going to. And yeah, we were also in Africa a few times on the West Coast. So also there we experienced that you need to localize also. So it's not enough just to have a global strategy. You also need to localize your strategies to the current cultures and current distribution systems. So I guess it has come since I learned about marketing, also because I come from a very small country. Denmark is 5.5 million people, so I'm really coming from a small environment in that sense. But here in Denmark, we have many companies who have competence on a world scale, for example, in wind energy and other, say, healthcare and other interesting sectors. And I think I learned from these companies that you need to have a global concept, and then you try to localize at the same time. And I think it's a good combination, especially if you come from such a small company as a country, to think in that way. So I think it is just something that that has developed in my mind over many years.
And given the small nature of the country, as you say, and the need, therefore, for those companies to find other locations where they can export their product, how important was it for them to also be strong in their home market as well?
yeah, that was somehow the starting point. And yeah, just to mention, one of the theoretical models behind this thinking is this Porter's diamond model. And that really explains how important the home market is, because when we look, for example, at the wind energy sector, where Denmark is #1 in the world, I would say. We have one company here who has the biggest market share worldwide, and that is Vestas. And there are also other associations, companies who are really into this kind of network, the wind energy network. So that is one example where this small country has developed worldwide competence. So even if we are only a very small country, we are leading in this sector, and that has come since the 70s, where the government played a very big role in developing this sector. So the government made a 30-year plan back in the 70s, when we had the first oil crisis. At that time, social democratic government made a big plan, 30 years plan, and they had the goal at that time that within 30 years, Denmark should develop to the leading country of the world within wind energy. So that was a plan in the late 70s, and then everything. That is the advantage of being a small country, that you know, the government can set out some goals, and then everybody are actually trying to follow. So in that sense, we are quite disciplined here in Denmark. So everybody are following the guidelines. That is also the case now with the corona crisis that we have, that if the government says something, everybody are trying to follow guidelines. And that also happened back 30, 40 years. And so the first initiatives in this sector was actually that the government gave subsidies to farmers to set up wind turbine on the land. And so that was the startup of this industry. And then there came other players in the field, and this sector was developed also with some knowledge sector, educational sectors, different associations where companies could share knowledge within wind energy. So today we are absolutely in the we are leading this sector. One of the biggest, we have Vestas, that is #1 in the world. We have the second largest is Siemens from Germany. They have a big factory of wind turbines also in Denmark. That is one example how you can actually move things if you are getting inspiration and getting something, some goals to follow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So it helps being a small country, just as Rwanda is landlocked. It's got 11 million population. Yeah. And again, it's an emergent development economy. So government has put a lot of effort into its Vision 2020, Vision 2030, a national strategy. And therefore it's very clear, centralized, what it is it wants the country to do. And it's very clear about developing its Made in Rwanda initiatives and businesses, where entrepreneurship is very much core to its economy building. So these are all very, you know, today we're delighted to be joined by, you know, startup entrepreneurs that have been going for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, young entrepreneurs, some who are in domestic tourism, recalibrating their tourism to meet the needs of, because of course there's no inward tourism at the moment. We have great grocery chains being developed. We have some great fashion brands being developed. We have a wonderful educational toy manufacturer being developed as well. So do you sense therefore that it's under the Danish values of those companies were really those that were clearly then articulated out of its country, holding on to its values, but also at the same time recognizing that different countries also have different needs and different nuances.
Yes, I think it's very important if you are a relatively small country as Denmark and Rwanda. Also, it's really important to recognize your own values and and see what can you bring to the world with a background that you have as a nation, and then try to develop from there. But of course, history is really important. So it's not just something you do overnight. It's really something you have to work with in several decades in order to move something important. So it is just now in Denmark we have the government now have set up a new ambitious plan in the climate sector. So not only in wind energy now, but in the whole climate sector, that within 10 years, we will try to decrease the CO2 emission with 70%, 70%. So it's very ambitious, and I think it's one of the most ambitious plans in the world right now to help these serious climate problem. Of course, just right now, the corona has somehow overshadowed the climate crisis, but we think still that the climate crisis is maybe the biggest challenge for this world in general. And our government and Denmark has really we have put ourselves in the front seat of this development now for the next 10 years. I'm sure we can contribute with ideas. We can contribute with solutions to save energy in different sectors. So, but it's very important that you start up with your own values. So that is somehow and your culture, of course. So that is somehow the most important starting point, and then realize that it's not just something you do overnight. It's really a slow movement, but over many years you can move something.
Sure. So, and what do you think it is about the Danish values that he has managed to export itself so successfully, particularly in the wind sector, wind energy sector?
And yeah, I think the fact we are a small country has enormous value in some sense, because we stick together about these plans that come out of the democratic chosen leaders that we have chosen. So we really trust those people, that they do the best they can, and only look at the nation's interests, not look at personal interests. For example, if you measure on corruption level, there are some measurements worldwide about corruption in countries, and in that some of those measurements, I think Denmark is number one. We have been number one for several times now. So in the sense that you will not find any signs of corruption in Denmark. There is, of course, in between some cases, as in all countries, but in general, the level is very low. And that means that everybody trusts the leaders, and yeah, we trust they do their best. And in Denmark we have a very low power distance. That meaning that the distance from top to bottom is very low. So more or less everybody in Denmark are earning the same salary. So it's maybe the last socialist country in the world in that sense, because I think also the tax rate here is maybe the highest of in the world, together with Sweden, maybe. But still, Danish people don't mind to pay a high tax because they can see that the money they pay in tax is getting out there to help families and help companies to do different things. And exporting is what we live from here in Denmark. Our home market is more or less nothing. So we live from exports. So that has been so for many years. A company starting up in Denmark will always think about how can I get out there with my products and services. So that is the thinking from day one. Companies, startup companies, are thinking about how can I get this product, this service sold into the rest of Europe and in the rest of the world. So normally companies here are thinking about Germany as number one market, because Germany is just our neighbor. So that is probably the first market they will look at. But many startup companies, born globals, have you know, this thinking. When we do develop some technology, some app for the smartphone, or some software or something, they have the whole world as the playing field somehow.
And I know that we've got some questions that some of our colleagues would like to ask us, but you touched upon something there which I just want to come back on. I remember when we first met back in 2006-07, and a phrase you've used again just now is "born global."
Yeah.
And so, and of course, the organisation I was developing then was a Born Global. But I then remember what you said about the need, perhaps, to grow your enterprise as the Danish do in close markets.
Yeah.
Close markets, but perhaps there's less psychic distance, which is another theory.
Yeah. Yes,
so can you just explain about the importance of setting up as a Born Global, given that also Rwanda is very small, and also it sounds like that it can look, there are similar, it's similar actually in size and perhaps in structure to Denmark. It's very low on corruption as well, in the anti-corruption index. So this issue of Born Global and psychic distance, can you just talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I think overall it's also when I hear about the products that these startups in Rwanda are working with, I think it's probably a good idea to look at the surrounding countries as the first export markets. That is also what the most Danish companies are doing. So they look at countries where the psychic distance is the least. So psychic distance is defined by individuals and not something measured in general. Maybe you have heard about this culture guy called Professor Hofstede. He made a big research about the country cultures and the differences between cultures, between all kinds of country cultures. So it's not that concept I'm talking about. I'm actually talking about individual perception of the distance, the psychological distance from you as a seller and to a potential customer in another country. So each of the parties will experience or have a kind of mindset that there's a kind of difference in the way of thinking, their lifestyle, etc. So that is what I mean with the psychic distance. And it's probably a good idea if you try to go to countries where the psychic distance is relatively low, because then you can get very quick down to business, because you have a kind of common understanding of the world and the problems that you face out there. So it's probably a good idea to start up with countries or with customers, partners where there is this kind of low psychic distance. And then the born globals, yeah, that is a concept that is relevant for more technological oriented companies, where you see a common need for your product or your service in several countries at the same time. And then yeah, you as a startup, you actually have the whole world as your playing field, and try to look out for some customers, and not look so much into different countries, but more look at potential customers where you can see that there is a need for your product or your service. So I know in like Denmark, there are a lot of startups who have specialized in apps for the smartphone, and they are all born globals, because they have the whole world as playing field, and everybody in the world can download apps to the smartphone, and independent on where you are, people have the same smartphones all over the world. So that is absolutely in a field where the born globals come into to play. But also with, as I heard, there was somebody saying something with toys.
Yeah.
And we have this wonderful company in Denmark called Lego. So probably you have heard about this company.
Yes.
And they were not, from the beginning, Lego was not a born global, but because they started out in the Danish market selling toys of tree, actually, when back in the 1930s. So they started up in another material, and then in 1950s they came. The founder of Lego actually went to UK, and he saw a kind of plastic brick there, and he thought, "Oh, that is a wonderful idea." So and that was how he went home to Denmark, and then he made a little extra on this idea from UK, and then he came up with the Lego brick that he patented in late 50s, 1950s. And since then, Lego has just been all over the world. They are probably number one now in the toys market, bigger than Mattel and the other US companies. So they have really done fantastic, and it's really a very simple idea. And they took the idea, and then they have just expanded on many different products in this plast area. And now they work with robots, how to put together robots with the Lego bricks. So it's just continuing. The creativity is just continuing. So I think that is also a kind of value that is important in a country, that you free people, that you try to to get creative ideas running in companies and not make any restrictions on creativity. Because it's really about getting the right ideas. Because if you have a good idea, you know the investors will always come to you. So I think idea making or creativity with ideas and brainstorming with ideas is very important.
Fantastic, great. Some great advice there about also just about taking your culture out of the country and thinking through born globals, and the idea of Legos. I'm sure Bonfil that will appeal to one of our entrepreneurs as well. I'm going to allow now time for some questions before we proceed. I know Wilson, you had a question. Wilson, would you like to speak to Svend and about what you're doing and what your question is? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Daryl. Thank you for the special guest for today. It's really, really inspiring. I'm Wilson. First of all, greetings from Rwanda. I'm in the tourism sector. I'm founder and the manager of Wilson Tours Travel Agency Limited. We are in the tourism industry.
Yes.
Wilson Tours is born to promote, especially to promote domestic tourism and just create many jobs in Rwandan youth through tourism. So we are here just struggling, but we are lucky to be with you because you are just an expert in giving just advices on what about marketing, branding, just everything. My question is, you've been talking about energy in Denmark.
Yes.
And I want to tackle on tourism especially. And again, the question especially is how, sometimes we do sell services, happiness to people.
Yes.
And nowadays, people, they're not normal in the normal life. How could you market to someone? Maybe he may go to he may come to Rwanda. How can she have the eager to go to come and visit, while he knows that he's going to spend like 14 days just in quarantine? Really, I do want you to share how we can market so that people, they can be happy just as normal. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Very interesting question. It's not always easy to create happiness, but in our country and also in the tourist sector, we work a lot with this experience economy, and every company here is concerned about creating experiences for tourists. And that is somehow this experience economy is maybe the key word for that. So I would say that it is just I try to get an idea of what is my perception of Rwanda as a tourism country. And actually, I cannot come up with something very special. In other countries of Africa, maybe have a clearer profile in tourism, at least seen from my perspective. So of course, I think that it creates something in tourism is not only the task of one single company and one startup. It should clearly be a part of the whole government policy to create and decide on what should really be the brand of Wanda. What is it that you want to be known for? So and that is maybe a starting point to set up some of those USPs, as we call it in marketing, as unique selling points. So what would you like Wanda to be known for? So what should be their specialty in the region? What should make Wanda different from other African countries? And that is not task of one single company. It's a task of the government policy. So it should probably start up there. I know in Denmark, for example, we have several works on tourism, and it may be no surprise that we focus on German tourists a lot, because they have a short distance to come to Denmark, and what they are interested in is actually just the Danish nature. Is so simple as that, and then they want to go to Legoland. So these two things are the two things that the German tourists are interested in. So enjoy the nature along the coast of Denmark, the west coast, the coast towards the UK also. So enjoy water, swimming, and nature, and the silence. That's also an experience, to enjoy silence. If you are sitting in some apartment in Frankfurt or Munich or Hamburg, in big cities, then you the big experience for you, the thing you pay for, is just to have some silence in your mind and have time to think about family and be together with family and the kids. So it's not always some fancy things you need to do, at least not for many tourists that we have here in Denmark. So, but of course you have the nature also. So, but the nature in Wanda is probably a little different from Denmark. So, of course, you should try and find out how can you make this nature. How can you make this attractive to people? Maybe it's not a big step for you. You just have to communicate what are the values that you want to sell. So, but you know, different types of tourists have different needs, and that's also part of doing marketing and do marketing research. You should probably try and find out who would be interested in going to Wanda and stay 2 weeks there. Is it people from Europe? Is it people from rest of Africa? So what do you have to offer that is different from other countries?
So
something, yeah.
So if I can just chip in, so because there is Visit Rwanda,
yeah,
and so there is a Rwanda tourism organization as part of the government taking that forwards, and around 10% of GDP was, you know, was part of Rwanda's growth. So now it's been very badly hit, obviously, with borders being shut. Are you saying now's the time for someone like Wilson, who runs a tourism organization, to really look at the statistics that are out there about who has been coming to Rwanda,
yes,
to really get a sense of the markets that are there what countries they've been coming from, to maybe ask some of his own customers that have come to him before who are non-Rwandans, what did you like? What do you want? What do you feel when you come here? And then to think about certain markets that can then be targeted with maybe a global local message.
Exactly. So actually, if you're looking at the screen now, this model that I have created is somehow a good concept, I think, to make this kind of matchmaking. If you know this app on the smartphone called Tinder, do you know this Tinder app? Anybody in Rwanda using this, or is it unknown to you? But Tinder is a dating app, okay? And this dating app tries to match you with somebody out there who you would like to meet and make a date with. And it's the same with companies. So you look at your own company, the box to the left, the firm. You look at your country, that's also a kind of firm, right? Just look at the US, because Trump is looking at the US as a kind of firm. So you look at your company, your firm, your startup, and you try to realize, what is it that I can contribute with? What are my competences in my company? What am I doing that is worth for the environment? So you try to match your competences with the needs in the environment. And of course, it's a very good idea to first look into who have visited Rwanda, what kind of tourists have been to Rwanda during the last 10 years, because that could be a starting point. But it is not the same as to say, you know, that could also be the future target group. Maybe it's another kind of target group that you are looking for, but you are really trying to look into the environment and try to find out what are the needs and wants in the environment, in the surrounding countries, in parts of Europe maybe. And you try to look into what are their needs for experience in the tourist sector. And then you try to make a very simple matchmaking. So it's like Tinder, you make matches. So you look at your own company, and then you try to see, are there any markets, are there any target groups, tourist segments out there that that I could target. So matchmaking is a fundamental tool in your work, in your daily work, I would say. So if you don't understand matchmaking, then that is a first step to really get something doing, because it's not enough just to look at the biggest markets, you know. That is a very one of the mistakes that are being done again and again. Companies, countries are looking for the biggest markets, US market, China, or so on. But maybe that are not the markets that are the most attractive to this specific company, because you have to do matchmaking. You have to see what are your values, what is can you contribute with, and then you try to look at the environment and see, are there anybody out there who are interested in what I can offer? So matchmaking is a core tool that you have to learn to use.
And maybe they're closer to home markets now, because of travel restrictions. Maybe they're more regional. Maybe they're more, you know, about Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and so on. Maybe they're more local to those markets. And you mentioned something which is very important as well, which was the segments that maybe Rwanda has been targeting, which tend to be tend to be upmarket luxury tourism.
Yes.
Maybe it's about looking for a different market segment.
Yeah.
For example, maybe looking for a more independent traveler, maybe someone that's looking for a different type of experience as well.
Yeah, exactly. So just for me to understand, is safari tourism, is that big in Rwanda? Safari?
Wilson.
Yes, it's very big because we have Akagera National Park.
Yeah.
We have now we have 3 parks.
Yeah.
Just actually we have different forms of tourism.
Yes.
Like we have adventure tourism, ecotourism, culture tourism, religious tourism, agri-tourism. Just is very huge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very interesting. I'm actually just, I have looked with the research project, I have looked into rural tourism in the way to implement rural tourism or agricultural tourism in big cities. So how can hotels in big cities like New York, London, etc., how can they make maybe some farming on the roof? And that could also be part of the future in tourism, because and some of the hotels have beekeeping. So maybe that's also something to consider also for your country. I don't know if it is a relevant topic, but at least you have the growing conditions in Rwanda that are much better than in our part of the world. You have the climate where you can get everything to grow. So this kind of rural tourism or the agri-tourism also in big cities can be something to consider. Together with the Austrian government, I'm actually right now doing a small research project on this opportunity for bigger hotels to look into this opportunity, how to make experiences for the hotel guests. And one of the tools for that is actually to let these hotel guests go to the roof of the hotel and see all kinds of agricultural things happening, growing, tomatoes, other kind of crop on the roof of the hotels. Some, just as I said, some of the hotels have bees. And have a kind of, they make honey out of the bees and they serve the honey for hotel guests. So that is a kind of experience that many hotels, at least in Europe, are interested in, to see this kind of original thing in tourism, to experience that the food that you're eating is somehow locally produced. That is a kind of value to many potential tourists. So I think that could also be an idea to think in that direction. And I think the growing conditions in Africa are so splendid. So maybe it could be worth considering.
So you've got out there, for example, different travel companies that are offering these experiences to people. Maybe it's looking to see, well, what, just benchmarking, just getting some ideas about what others are doing, you know, because as you've mentioned, Rwanda is very rich in agriculture and ecotourism, and there's lots of wonderful, you can go around coffee plantations and tea plantations, you can visit honey farms. Maybe there is just, once you understand your segments, just maybe package the product in a slightly different way to add more value.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And make a combination of different service as a kind of a package solution, as you say, Del. And then I'm sure that if people would feel safe to go to Rwanda from Europe, and that is maybe also a kind of thing to stress that everything there is safe, because that can also be an issue to many people in this part of the world. So safety is a big issue, I think, for many people when they when they go abroad, especially in these days. After Corona, I think that tourism will change. So it is not going to be the same in future.
So those issues, those safety factors, if you like, even if it comes from Maslow's hierarchy of needs from many years ago, those issues about safety and security are heightened because of COVID-19.
Yes.
So those are issues that perhaps need to be re-articulated in the messaging to people which, as you said, may not have come to the country before and may have now reservations about traveling 8-9 hours on a plane. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Very, very interesting. Does that help you, Wilson? I hope that helps, Wilson.
Pardon me?
I hope that helps with some ideas.
Yes, yes, just I've been helped. And I really welcome our guest, our special guest, Hollensen, to Rwanda. Because welcome, I will be happy to see you, to host you in Rwanda. We have a very, very special climate, weather. We have mountain gorillas. We have everything to offer to our guests.
Don't worry, I will drag him on a plane. Many years ago, I've dragged him on a plane to Ghana, Nigeria, Sri Lanka, and Malaysia. So one day I will drag him on a plane to Rwanda.
Yes. I'm sure that Daryl can organize that.
I'm sure I can. Yeah, we're back. The team is back. We've reformed the band.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you, Wilson. Just moving. Has anybody else has got a question? Bonfield, Christelle, about your international expansion plans? Videns, you want to ask the prof a question?
My question goes to
who's this? Sorry, who is this? Videns?
Yes, Videns. Yeah. How do you choose the expansion model? Franchising was my go-to. What are the criteria? How do you find a partner? And should you have different models in different countries, or should I be homogeneous?
Okay.
Or
that's a good question.
Yeah.
So for Dens as well, just explain to Svend what your business is.
What we do, we have an online grocery store, and we are collecting data about fresh food consumption in urban communities in Africa, starting from Rwanda, of course. And we want to make sure that we don't wait until we break even in Rwanda to start engaging in the market. So we are looking at how we can leverage on what we have already done. We have a list of 10 products, the most wanted in Kigali, and we've just started to engage farmers. So the model, whatever we've done so far, can be exported, but under which format, and how best can we do it?
So once again, what was the product?
It's an online grocery store. Home delivery of fresh food and veggies. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So and did you all looked into the slideshow that I sent through Daryl? So Daryl, did they have access to the slideshow?
Not yet.
Okay,
no.
Okay. But the model that I'm presenting for this international expansion is somehow built on the thinking of this kind of matchmaking. Maybe go back, Daryl, so I can explain the criteria that I have used. There is an example with Bosch about choosing the right country in the Middle East. So maybe there can be some idea, maybe further back. Oh, that is. But this is interesting, actually. Just to give you this Indian company. So this company here is a motorcycle company from India, Bajaj. Maybe you also have those motorbikes in Wanda, because I think also Wanda can be one of their markets. But they are selling the small motorbikes. What I said about, you should not always go for the big market. This company is a very good example for that. Because they are selecting not the biggest motorcycle markets. They are selecting markets where their key competence is matching with the needs in the market. If you go a little further, Daryl, where I have this map of where they are selling them. This is this one here. Here you can see that the places where this motorbike or this range of motorbikes are being sold. So they are not selling their motorbikes in the biggest motorcycle markets of the world. That would be United States, Europe, Japan, China. They are selling their motorbikes around equator with those dots there, and they are quite strong in these markets. So they have chosen deliberately to go to markets where their key competence is fitting, is matching up with the needs in the market. So that is, of course, just to emphasize the point I had before about this matchmaking principle. But so in that regard, it's a good case to look at. But I have another case after this where I go more into the criteria. This is an example about Bosch and selling fire security to Middle East. And there I was involved in selecting the best countries for Bosch fire security in Middle East. So I started up putting a lot of potential markets into a funnel. And you see it from the top there. So I put like 8 countries into a funnel in this region. Egypt, Iran, Kuwait, Oman, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar. And then I make a very rough screening as the first screening, and I use some knockout criteria. And the criteria I used here was political stability. And based on that knockout criteria, Egypt and Iran went out of the screening process. And in principle, you can do the same and maybe put in some of the surrounding countries of Rwanda in Africa, and then try to make the same exercise. And then for the next screening, there are 6 countries left, and then I make I select some criteria that are important both from a company point of view, so from competitive strength, and then also from market attractiveness, looking into the market. And based on that, I came up with this ranking that you see in the bottom. UAE was ranked as number 1, Saudi Arabia as number 2, and Qatar number 3. So maybe I can go a little ahead, Daryl,
yes,
just to explain some of the criteria that I have used. Oh yeah, there. There you see the criteria I have used for this company where I did this consultancy job quite some years ago. But there I have chosen some criteria for market attractiveness and afterwards I do the same, but for competitive strength, where I go into the company. Okay, but here I'm looking on the environment and look into economic position, and that would be where I use GDP per capita as a measure for economic position. I looked into an evaluation of quality versus price. I looked into third criteria there is construction. Why construction? Because if you sell fire security, it is, of course, one of the key market indicators is construction activity. So we looked into number of billion-dollar projects in these different countries that you see here, these 6 countries. And as you see, where is there a lot of construction going on? In UAE, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, etc. So UAE, if you look at the right column there, UAE got the highest grades for all these criteria. But first, before you do the different scores or different grades, you start up evaluating the weights. Okay, so first thing to do is to come up with a kind of brainstorming of what are the most important criteria for market attractiveness, and then you that line there. So and you probably start up with a longer list of criteria than these ones there. And then you talk together with somebody else in the management group, talk about what are the most important criteria for us. And as you see, the most important criteria was the ones with the highest weight, and that would be like market, down there. Some very specific criteria as the CE certified products, some of the verticals that comply with EN standards that are somehow the European norms for electronic products, etc. And then the highest grades, highest weights also got market size in fire business and market growth. So those were some of the most important weights. So we give those criteria the highest weight. And then you go in and give some grades afterwards. Yeah. So you see there for example, that one that Dell points at now, you see the result there is 0.15. So now you can more or less calculate what kind of grade we have given for that. That's a 3, because 3 multiplied with 0.05 is 0.15. And you see, for example, on the same, we have given a UAE 5, because 5 multiplied with 0.05 is 0.25. So you do this kind of evaluation.
So
together.
Was 5 the highest? Was 5 the highest?
Yes, yes. Yeah. So we can we gave 1 on a scale from 1 to 5. We gave 1, 3, and 5.
Yeah.
We didn't use 2 and 4, because sometimes it's easier to evaluate if you have 3 points on the one of both extremes and 1 in the middle. Yeah. So we gave 1, 3, and 5. So and you can see from all the results there how it was done, and of course the weights should be summed up to 100% or 1.0. Okay. So and then you summarize all the results there, and then you get the results, accumulated results on the bottom line. And then you do the same Yeah, so you see UAE got like 5.0, so they got maximum points on market attractiveness. And of course, it's a fantastic market for fire security because they are building a lot of hotels in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, so that was a fantastic market. So we do the same on both market attractiveness and competitive strength. And then, then we take these 2 points together. If you look at, for example, Saudi Arabia, I have used that as an example. We have a sum here of 2.8, and on the other one we got like 3, or was it 4? I can't remember. But then we put that on the next one, on this. If you go to the next, Daryl.
Oh, this was the market attractiveness one we looked
Yeah,
at. This
yeah. So
okay. This is competitive strength.
Yeah. So then you take those 2 points for each country and put them on the next slide. There. And there you can see Saudi Arabia, for example, with 2.8 on competitive strength and 4.2 on market attractiveness. Yeah. So you take the points that you get from the earlier slides, and then you put in the results on this one. And here you can see 2 dimensions. You can see the market attractiveness on the vertical, and you can see the competitive strength on the x-axis there, horizontally. So here you can nearly already see which markets are the most attractive, because you would like to go to markets where there is a high attractiveness and where the competitive strength of the company is high. And that happened to be in UAE and Saudi Arabia as the first 2, and number 3 was Qatar. So that is a way to do it, and that was when I presented the results to Bosch management. I did this in Eindhoven in Holland, actually. So I used 2 weeks to do this work, but I also had the budget to invite people from these local countries, to experts, so they could give me feedback on some of these issues. That was maybe different from what I do elsewhere, where they do not have a large budget. But I had the opportunity here to do it in the right way. I only presented 1 piece of paper to the management of Bosch, and that was this piece of paper here.
Really?
And then I just present and say, okay, you can see here that I just explain very briefly what the model is about. And you can see here, the best match we get in UAE, high market attractiveness and high competitive strength of Bosch in that country. And here you should remember that Bosch is a multinational company, and they are all over the world. So they are already in these countries, but not with this new product line, fire security. And that is how we can also, we could also make some evaluation on competitive strength. Because as a startup, if you don't have much experience in other countries, it is really hard to evaluate competitive strength. So the competitive strength when I do this for startup companies, then it is really hard to differentiate the competitive strength in different countries, because the company hasn't got this kind of experience yet. So the market attractiveness tend to be the competitive strength tend to be on the same vertical line, if you can see this. But here with Bosch, it's another case. They were already in these countries, and they had some organization already. They sold power tools and in the automotive industry also. So what I told the management of Bosch was, UAE #1. And then they told me, we are already doing something in UAE. So do you have a second rank? Yes, I have Saudi Arabia. Oh, okay. They said, we also doing something there. And recently we had some problem with the CEO in our subsidiary in Bosch subsidiary in Saudi Arabia. The CEO had some affair with several of the female employees at the same time. So maybe it's not the best time to go to Saudi Arabia. And then I had also a rank 3, and that was Qatar. So actually the final decision was this very strange country, Qatar. So that was the country where Bosch decided to do to get a better position and to get a good market share in Qatar. So this model here is good for ranking and screening of markets. And maybe if you go to the next one, Daryl, then you could, the Qatar. If you have any idea about Qatar, it's a very small country actually. It's a kind of neighbor to Saudi Arabia, but there is a lot of growth in Qatar. From a political point and democratic point of view, Qatar is not to recommend because it's a kind of dictatorship. There is an emir deciding everything in Qatar. So from that perspective, Qatar is really not good. But
big barriers to entry as well,
Yes, so, yes. Yeah. But from economic point of view, it's fantastic. And I just have learned that these big multinationals, they have fine CSR policy on paper, but when it comes to the real thing, the real decisions, they sometimes have other criteria in mind, and normally it's a kind of profit they have in mind. And for that criteria, Qatar was a fantastic decision because, what is happening in Qatar, in maybe 2 years' time from now, there is a World Cup in football taking place in Qatar. And what do you need for those big events? You need hotels, right? And other big buildings, and all of those big buildings need some fire security. That is part of law in that region, that you need fire security. So that was at that time fantastic choice. It's the best advice I've ever given a company. And actually, it's not enough just to recommend the right market. Then afterwards, if you go to the next,
about how do you get into it? I mean, how do you make that market work for you?
Actually, that was the second part, because we found out that it was not enough just to recommend the best country. We really had to come up with some marketing plan then for Qatar, and based on this recommendation, I made a travel to Doha in Qatar, and I participated in 2 fairs and met some of the key competitors there for Bosch, and the 2 key competitors to analyze here was Siemens from Germany and Honeywell from United States. So it's really important to find out these strengths and weaknesses that is also mentioned here about competitors. And one of the ways to find out is, of course, to go to the country where you want to sell your product, and that is a kind of must. Maybe not in these Corona days, but else it is a kind of must. And you can go to fairs, exhibitions about fire security, electronic business, and you can also visit hotels, of course, and ask some of the hotel managers what kind of fire security they're using. And if they use one of the two competitors, you can ask about how satisfied are they with the current solutions, and what are they really good at these two competitors, etc. So, and then that gave me inspiration to put together a marketing plan, and that was then given over to the local Bosch people, and then they took it from there, and they implemented then the marketing plan that I have come up with.
Yeah.
So that is one way of doing it. I think that worked fantastic for me at that time. And who would think that Qatar would be so attractive?
Yeah.
But it really turned out to be.
As you said, it was an unexpected.
Yes.
If you'd have said without any, if you said without just thinking about it, you would not have necessarily thought about Qatar for that region.
No,
but actually,
exactly.
what you then did was you found a market through a process that you went through. And as you said, Bosch is a big multinational, but even as a small organization, you can still think about markets closer to within your region and start to look at them and start to put criteria in place to assess their market attractiveness, even if you do not necessarily know the competitors there.
Exactly.
But of course, you may have competitors that are domestic competitors that are equally targeting those countries, so you can start to see those points of difference as well.
And then you can, of course, also look at the competitor and see what the competitor is doing. Where does he orient himself? Where does he go? Because if he has made some analysis that points out that now he goes to this or that country, then there he may have done some analysis that you can somehow use yourself, and maybe investigate, go in more detailed research about that particular country where the competitor is going. So competitor actions are always good to join.
Yeah. And you've also identified. I mean, I'm conscious it's 11:10. Can we just have you for another 10 minutes? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. So, and the other issue was, as you said, once you identify a market, then it was about developing the marketing plan, because I guess different countries that may have been selected, if you had gone with Saudi Arabia or UAE, that may have had a different market entry plan attached to it.
Of course, yes.
Can you just explain a bit more about the market entry plan and the adaptive models that have to be put in place there?
Yeah. And when we had chosen, or together with the Bosch, we had chosen Qatar to go to. The market entry plan or the marketing plan is then dependent on the local condition, on the local market environment. And of course, you have to search for your own distribution channels, and distribution channel, the promotion you're doing is different from what you would have done in Saudi Arabia. So you have to look into the local market. And one important point is, that was also one key point I had on one of the slides, that was learn from the best in the class. That is a very important principle. And so you find out who are the best competitors in your business. And then you look more closely into those competitors and see what they are doing that is successful. And that is not to say that you should copy, but you should learn from the best in class. And then that means that you try and look, the competitor is doing so and so. Is that an idea for me, or should I do it a little different, or how? So I think that's a very important
and you make an important point, not to copy, but just to see what you can learn from others, and how maybe you could do things a bit differently in order to differentiate yourselves further.
This slide here, if we should end up with that, is just to say, and one important decision is also to choose on the entry mode. And as most of you are startup companies, you will probably not choose the option to the right and hierarchical mode in form of a sales subsidiary, because it's quite expensive to set up a subsidiary in other countries. So if you work with international marketing, you'll probably use the option to the left. So try to find some good agents, importers, distributors in the surrounding countries, in the surrounding countries that you are choosing,
because that's a much easier route in as well.
Yes,
I take it so in terms of Wilson, for example, and his tourism organization, he may want to find a local representative in a country which has access to the type of people that he knows would want to come to Rwanda, for example.
Yes, exactly. So and you can set up the same tool with this kind of matchmaking. You can set up the same principle model for choosing the right distributor or the right agent, and I recommend to do that, because every research that has been done points out that those companies who do research about their, ground research about these market issues are the ones who will be the winners finally. So it is worth using some time for this kind of market research.
I'm thinking you could also apply this to the domestic market, couldn't you? You could also say, well, how do I want to, I'm based in Kigali, but how do we ensure that we get more reach across Rwanda?
Yeah, of course. So finding the right geographic places in Rwanda to go to, you can take the same tool, give some weights, what is the most important when you should consider where to go in Rwanda, or what kind of customer you would prefer. So you can take the same tool and do the same research and the same use the same tool, giving weights to your criteria, and then give grades to your options.
And the model that might work in Rwanda may work slightly different region to region, but also that may be very different to what you decide to do when you then export your product as well.
Exactly.
Very interesting. So it's got to be you have to be very agile, very flexible, very adaptable to the market conditions and what the market's telling you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Always try to match yourself and your competence up against the opportunities out there.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Svend. We've had
you.
a great hour together. I know that Bonfil would like to close this particular session by saying a few words.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Daryl. Thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you indeed, Dr. Svend. Really, I don't know what to say, because I've been really inspired by instructions and the guidance that you provided to young entrepreneurs. And I noted some very, very good and constructive ideas. So after this constructive guidance and the inspiring tips we had from you on international marketing, really saying just thank you could not be enough to express our gratitude for your concern and time you spent with us. So on behalf of my teammates, we strongly thank you and highly appreciate your help toward our success as young entrepreneurs. We are going to practice what we learned from you, and surely soon or later you will hear the fruits of this optimistic conversation we had with you. So, Doctor, we look forward to receiving you in Rwanda.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to go with Daryl someday. and then we can interact more, and yeah, it would be a wonderful. If Africa is a fantastic continent in so many different ways, and Dal and me visit small part of Africa, but we know that of course there are so many different cultures in Africa that are worth visiting, and so we will be looking forward to that day. And I would also like to thank you for joining, and wish you all good luck with all your international marketing activities and your plans for expansion of your businesses in Rwanda. So good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, Sven. We'll see you soon.
See you.
Have a good session. Thanks for a great session. We'll see you soon.
Yeah,
bye,
see you. Bye.
Great. Everybody, hi.
Hi, Daryl.
Daryl, hi, everyone.
Everybody,
wow.
Did you like, how was that session for you? Christelle.
Interesting.
Frankly speaking, a little bit complicated. It was hard to catch up. Like it was mostly, it would have been simpler if I had some business science in mind. But I got what I needed, so it's okay. But I wish you could explain us in simpler terminologies what he said.
Doing business, analyzing business with Bosch.
Yeah, I think there's some things there that Bosch are clearly doing because they're a huge multinational, but I can see ways in which it can be very straightforward for you guys just to think about your markets. So, you know, the fact that you can't attack all markets equally. I think he was absolutely right in what he said, that, you know, firstly, as we've said, you've really got to get a strong foothold domestically. That is your base. That's your solid base, particularly at this time of COVID-19. And also because that's about supporting the government with its priorities. So I shared with you the other day the economic recovery plan. And I think that's really, you know, important that you understand the way in which you tap in to that, and therefore are playing your role in supporting Rwanda's recovery. Now, obviously, while that's happening, you also, part of that is looking at your own domestic market. And I think there's some really interesting parallels here for the way that you might, for example, choose certain second-tier cities or urban or peri-urban sectors, districts, that you think you really need to start to strengthen as well. And you can't strengthen all of them, but maybe you've got to find ways in which you take your product closer to their market. And so I got out of this was the fact that there was an interesting screening process, which of course is quite rigorous and quantitative. But at the end of the day, what Svend is saying is, look at those markets that you feel have potential, that, you know, have a hunch, you have an intuition. Start to break up your country into those districts and understand what's happening in each of the districts in terms of distribution channels and logistics to market and the type of neighborhoods that are there, some of which are going to be more category 1, category 2 households than category 3 or category 4 households. But I also think that while you're doing that work, there are, if you are at that point where it is important to consider how you would expand your product globally, then think about it regionally and think about those countries that are close to Rwanda in terms of characteristics, propensity to purchase, culture, values, and so on. And then work with government of Rwanda in saying, okay, well, what are the other export areas that we're currently targeting? And where is government of Rwanda going as well, to understand more about international markets? So I think there was a quantitative approach he took, but you could make it a lot simpler. And I'm happy. I'm sure Deborah is happy to come back with a very simple way, step by step, of how you can make that happen for yourselves. Yeah. Deborah, would you like to add anything? Deborah. Deborah's I think left the class for now. So Sigon, that was an interesting question you asked about where to find markets, and that was I think a really strong explanation from an international marketing prof about how to think of those markets in different ways. Christelle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just nodding my head, realizing how now I'm understanding everything. The way you explained it, I just connected the dots. Where I had gaps in understanding because of the complicated words, now I'm just getting it, and it's thank you.
Well, I think just as he talks about, thank you for that, but I think just as he talks about country identification, you can think about district identification.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the same model. So, I'm shooting back, so I'm trying to find what I was trying to do this morning, because there are the cities, there are the districts. And we know from the economic recovery plan that some districts are more harder hit. And we also know the makeup of Rwanda. Generally, I mean, this research I'm putting in front of you is not validated research, but it came from an interesting report that was provided to me last week, which I think is quite useful in terms of understanding the cities and the how far people are from specific cities. So just as Svend would say, okay, so, and as Videns said, okay, he was thinking of a franchise model. Maybe there's different ways. Maybe you set up a clothing store in another city, or maybe you introduce your clothes into an existing clothing store, might be better. Or maybe you find ways around the fact that you can joint venture with organizations or so on. So what tends to happen is, if you're a small fashion label, you may find other retailers who can therefore buy in your product and sell your product with your brand as part of the offering. So you don't have to set up a store. You can find existing stores who then become distribution outlets for your products. That may be one way to go. And again, you can't achieve everything in one step. So maybe there is, for example, maybe you're looking at Mzansi or Muganga as opportunities beyond Kigali. But then you've got to understand, well, what's in those cities? What is the infrastructure there? What is the logistics of me getting product to that market? And therefore, what are the particular outlets or agents that I might want to represent me locally? I mean, I'm also thinking, Wilson, about, maybe you've already got this in place, but how you can have for domestic tourism agents locally to the market where you want to attract domestic tourists from. And so you're represented both locally as well as centrally. But I think he made an interesting point as well for you, Wilson, about choosing your markets and having agents in particular parts of the world that can represent you.
Very, very interesting.
It's about looking at the data, looking at what's available, and then just starting to. Oh, I can hear myself back on someone. Just thinking through how you can start to select those markets step by step in a phased way that matches your financial means with the service quality that you need to be able to deliver. Okay.
Yeah, and you just answered my question. I had a question for Sven of how we can do, like, we can sell domestically, like we can expand our markets with little resources. But now you just answered it. This is a very interesting perspective.
Which one?
We can start them. Yeah, start domestically in cities. Look for cities. Do the screening process, and start small by small. Then after expand to even in regional and international markets.
Absolutely. So, for example, I spent a lot of time with Deborah last week and some other colleagues beyond Shibuka, academic researchers, both in Rwanda and the UK, putting together an application for how we can support low-income women entrepreneurs in tourism-hit communities, tourism-reliant communities. So those micro-entrepreneurs that are in Rubavu, Ruzozi, and interventions that we could start to put in place to support them. But firstly, we need to do the research. So we can't just do an intervention or decide on what the plan is. We firstly need to say, well, this is the research we need to do and what we want to find out. So for you as well, what is it you want to find out? What is it you need to know about these particular market opportunities? Do you want to know about the type of retailer that's there, the type of distribution channels that exist, how you're going to get your product to market, what those costs are going to be, how you're going to be able to sell it into a retailer that can equally sell it on to a customer, and they make some margin and you make your margin? So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, but I think, yes, by starting to split up Rwanda into these cities or in terms of the districts can probably certainly help you address some of those issues. And going back as well to the value chain, you know, that's where the value chain or the value map, some aspects at the beginning may be very similar, but then because you go into maybe a different market or a different region, the value chain may be slightly different, going to Mzansi as it would be going to Kigali, for example. And it would certainly also be different as you export perhaps to other parts of the world, Tanzania, Kenya, and so on and so forth. Okay.
Yeah, great.
Any more questions for today, guys?
Can we still have access to all these presentations? Like a PowerPoint?
I always send them out, yes. So I will send this one out equally again this evening once I get my words out as well.
In the records.
Always do, yeah, of course. Of course, as always.
Fantastic.
I will, straight after this, we will download the recording. We upload it then to SoundCloud, and we also upload the video to YouTube, as you know. So we will do that by the end of the day for sure.
Thank you.
Everybody, watch out for my email. Thanks for all your contributions today. It's always good to hear about the progress you're making. And it was really, for me as well, enlightening to hear from Professor Hollensen. I haven't seen Svend for around 10, 11 years.
Oh, wow.
So it was nice for me to personally catch up with him again as well. So thank you.
So another question. How do you spot out others people, and how you make sure that they can contribute, but to a level where we are not yet? And how do you match our progress and our levels, and which are also heteroclite, not so homogeneous, to what you have in your pool of expertise?
So we designed a program based on what it was we felt was important in terms of COVID-19 response, and we're able to pull on these fabulous global experts because of the network we've established over many, many years. So they're only too pleased to help and give up freely of their time. Yeah, so I'm delighted to, for example, connect with Kevin Keller again, and Svend Hollensen again, and next week's guest. Now, next week's guest, Dr. Johan Fuller from University of Innsbruck, who's very strong on product innovation. So how did I meet him? Well, I met him on a plane to Rwanda because we sat next to each other. We joined at Brussels Airport on Brussels Airlines last summer, and he sat down next to me. And he had this book, which you'll know from the minister last week, saying was a fantastic book to read, The Prosperity Paradox. So I thought that was interesting that he was reading this particular book, and he then got talking to me and said he was coming to Kigali for the first time ever to deliver a talk around corporate innovation. And so we just got talking. And so when we felt there was a need to put in place a program like this in the area of product innovation, who better can I go to than my friend Johan Fuller, who I met on a plane from Brussels to Kigali last year. So, you know, this is partly the ability for us to bring in people that we know are strong academically, very well published, well respected, but are also doing a lot of work with organizations as well. So
some kind of serendipity.
Serendipity, yeah. Yeah. So I think what it says also is that, you know, you put plans in place and you put those foundations in place and you build those relationships and that system, because that makes you much more resilient. So when you have this type of shock in the system, we're more able to respond because we've got a very strong network already in place that we know we can connect with. So the work you're doing now, you know, it may not be immediately apparent why you're doing it, but it will, along the way, start to make you think about things in different ways. And these are the foundations and building blocks that will serve you well for the future, in our opinion. But it's down to you. You know, it's your businesses at the end of the day. We can provide you with the insights, and what we'd like to do in July sometime is, you know, is for you to be able to pitch your proposition, your business model to the minister and to others, and to get some feedback. But we're here to guide you and help you with your proposition and your business. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darryl.
Looking forward.
Pleasure. Have a good day. We'll be in touch very soon. Take care.
Have a good day.
Very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.